The courtroom buzzed with whispers, the kind that crackled just beneath the surface of official silence. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but that didn't stop the reporters from lining the hallway like vultures waiting to tweet out the next tremor. The politician George Santos had arrived 20 minutes late, surrounded by a small team of aides and high-priced attorneys. His tailored suit looked expensive, his usual confident, almost theatrical demeanor seemingly unshaken. And seated directly across from him, the pastor, television preacher, and businessman Joel Osteen. No entourage, no fuss, just a steadfast conviction in his eyes and a simple folder in his hands. He stood when the politician entered, not out of deference, but out of a quiet, unyielding commitment to truth. Gasps echoed as he didn't wait for the judge's signal. He raised a document, a printout of a widely debunked campaign promise. "Your Honor," he said calmly, his voice resonating with clear conviction. "Before we discuss the letter of the law, let us remember the spirit of truth." The judge blinked. "Mr. Osteen, you'll wait your turn." He nodded, but the message was delivered. Cameras were already pushing against the doors. Social media was already buzzing. And the politician. His confident facade wavered slightly, a flicker of unease in his eyes. Outside the building, citizens held signs, some reading "Honesty Matters," others "Truth for the People." The nation watched through every live stream they could find. Inside, the pastor, television preacher, and businessman sat again, his gaze steady on the politician. Not when he leaned over to whisper to his lawyer, not when the bailiff called the court to order, not when the politician tried to flash that same tired charm he used with media out. Mr. Osteen wasn't there for a spectacle. He was there to uphold integrity. The politician George Santos strode into the chamber like it was another audition, not a congressional oversight hearing. His tailored suit looked impeccable. His usual air of practiced confidence was firmly in place. He didn't bring candid answers. He didn't bring accountability, just evasiveness and a carefully rehearsed air of defiance. Cameras clicked, staffers whispered, but the pastor, television preacher, and businessman Joel Osteen didn't waver. Seated at the end of the long mahogany panel, the pastor, television preacher, and businessman opened a simple, uncluttered folder. Inside weren't accusations. They were documented fabrications, campaign finance irregularities, and bank records linked to alleged misuse of funds, evidence the politician's team swore had been buried. Mr. Osteen had everything, not because someone handed it to him, but because he believed truth must always come to light. "Mr. Santos," Joel Osteen began, his voice calm but resolute, "you claim you're being unfairly scrutinized, yet these records detailing fraudulent campaign expenses, unexplained financial transfers, and outright fabrications about your past. They're not hearsay, they're here in black and white." He held up the page. The politician glanced at his lawyer, shifted in his seat. His confident posture seemed to stiffen. Across the room, members of the media adjusted their angles. The news channels were already preparing their narratives. But this moment, it wasn't about narrative, it was about truth. Mr. Osteen didn't raise his voice. He didn't seek to perform. He read fact by fact. Allegations of campaign funds diverted to personal accounts. Multiple false claims on official biographies. And this sworn statement detailing how donors were allegedly misled about your qualifications. The politician exhaled through his nose, arms crossed, but Joel Osteen pressed forward. "Is this integrity to you?" he asked, turning to the room. Because to the honest small business owners struggling to keep their doors open, to the constituents who believed your promises, to the public who deserves transparency, this looks like deception, weaponized deception. Silence followed. Even the most seasoned analysts seemed to pause. The politician leaned into the mic. "With all due respect," Joel Osteen didn't flinch. "Respect is earned, Mr. Santos. And what you've earned is a profound crisis of public trust." The room buzzed. Phones lit up. Clips from the exchange hit social media before the session ended. Steen for Truth trended within 30 minutes. And outside those chamber walls, working families, honest citizens, people who yearned for integrity and public service, sat up straighter because someone finally spoke with moral clarity what they'd been feeling all along. The pastor, television preacher, and businessman Joel Osteen slowly rose from his seat. He didn't check his notes. He didn't glance toward his aides. He simply locked eyes with the politician George Santos at the witness table and began to speak, his voice calm, deliberate, and chillingly precise. "You built a career on a foundation of fabrications and deceit, misleading voters and misrepresenting your background. You sought office under false pretenses and used your position for alleged personal gain. That's not just conjecture, that's documented. And yet here you are pretending you're the one being unfairly targeted. The politician shifted in his chair. A flicker of defensiveness crossed his face, but Joel Osteen didn't pause. "Let me show you this," he said, holding up a printed document. "An alleged campaign finance report from your own filing. Here are discrepancies detailing questionable expenditures. Here are records showing funds diverted in ways not consistent with campaign law. The American people aren't blind to these patterns, and yet accountability for blatant misrepresentation seems elusive. If this were any ordinary citizen, fabricating resumes to secure a job or misusing public donations, they would face severe consequences, not a platform." Whispers broke out behind him. The politician leaned toward the microphone. "These allegations lack proper context," he said, "and my personal history is not on trial here." Joel Osteen raised one eyebrow. "That's precisely the point, Mr. Santos. Your repeated pattern of deception and alleged financial irregularities seems to escape the full force of justice. Despite the fabricated past, the alleged campaign finance fraud, the numerous documented lies, anyone else would have faced prosecution. But you continue to make appearances and receive public attention." He turned toward the gallery where ordinary citizens and those affected by public corruption sat with folded arms. Meanwhile, hardworking Americans are facing stringent penalties for minor missteps, for paperwork errors or small-scale deceptions. This stark contrast in accountability is what troubles the soul of this nation. A reporter tried to interject, calling Mr. Osteen's statements emotionally charged, but he simply maintained his calm. "This isn't about political affiliation," he said. "This is about a two-tiered standard of truth, one for those who seek to deceive the public, and another for the everyday person who simply seeks honesty." His words resonated with profound clarity. Across social media, the clip exploded. Within 20 minutes, the hashtag #OsteenForTruth was trending at #1, and the public's demand for integrity grew louder. The studio buzzed with anticipation. Microphones jostled, lenses zoomed in. Joel Osteen had just challenged not only the politician, but the broader culture of accepting deception, and now he was stepping straight into the broadcast studio for an evening interview with host Alicia Monroe, known for her sharp political commentary. Alicia's opening words were politely challenging. "Mr. Osteen, you've been quite direct in your criticism of Mr. Santos. Don't you think as a pastor that's a rather harsh approach?" Joel Osteen didn't flinch. He leaned forward. "No, Alicia, what's truly personal is when trust is betrayed. What's personal is when citizens vote based on fabrications. What's personal is when hardworking people struggle to get by, while a public servant allegedly benefits from a foundation of lies and misdirection." The studio's tension grew thick. Alicia tried to interrupt, "But there's no conclusive proof of criminal intent." Joel Osteen, with a calm, steady voice, gently but firmly interjected, "Then why do we have documented contradictory statements? Why do campaign finance reports raise so many questions? Why did a public figure's entire background shift from one carefully constructed narrative to another, only to be revealed as a series of falsehoods?" Alicia stiffened. "The legal process is still unfolding." Joel Osteen leaned in closer, his voice unwavering. "But the court of public opinion has spoken, Alicia. Do you really believe public trust can be restored when fundamental questions of integrity and alleged fraud are met with prolonged ambiguity and apparent inaction?" There was a pause. Alicia looked momentarily searching for words. Joel Osteen delivered the line that resonated across social media in seconds. "You call it politics. I call it a breach of faith. And America understands the difference now." The moment was clipped, uploaded, and flooded TikTok and X within minutes. Hashtags exploded. #Osteen speaks, truth, our Santos accountability, lacked integrity, matters. Even legacy networks couldn't ignore it. For the first time in weeks, the questions about holding public officials to a basic standard of honesty were impossible to deflect. And Joel Osteen, he walked out of the broadcast studio calm and collected, flanked not by handlers, but by the unwavering principles of honesty and integrity. The politician George Santos hadn't expected such a strong public reaction for Joel Osteen, not in a studio where he might have hoped to charm and deflect. Yet there it was, a rising wave of supportive murmurs, a few even nodding vigorously. After Mr. Osteen presented documents that reframed the entire discussion. Joel Osteen turned slightly toward the camera and said, "This isn't just about sensational headlines, Mr. Santos. This is about foundational trust. And if you were an ordinary citizen, the consequences for such pervasive misrepresentations would be undeniable. He held the papers still, calm, but firm. These are verified public records, campaign filings, and bank statements. You can dismiss the accusations, but you cannot dismiss the impact on those who believed you. The politician smirked. Victims? You mean political opponents? He asked, his tone attempting lightness but betraying a tremor beneath. Joel Osteen didn't blink. No, I mean the constituents who were misled, the donors who were defrauded, and the public who deserves honesty from their elected officials. While you crafted an elaborate facade, people were left questioning the very integrity of public service. There was silence, then murmurs, then a sudden bold voice from the audience. He's right. Joel Osteen didn't gloat. He simply straightened the papers and placed them back on the desk. You want to talk about accountability, Mr. Santos? Let's start with the narrative you presented. Unchallenged fabrications. An alleged trail of misrepresented funds, holding public office based on a web of deceit. That's not just politics. That's a profound breach of public trust. The politician's demeanor cracked slightly. You're sensationalizing this, he said. But Joel Osteen leaned in, unwavering. No, Mr. Santos. The crisis of trust began the moment truth was systematically replaced with falsehoods. The host tried to cut to break, but even he hesitated. The energy had shifted, and everyone knew it. Joel Osteen didn't walk into that courtroom to be polite. He came armed with clear documentation. As the cameras blinked and the politician George Santos leaned back in his chair, like this was just another round of theater, Joel Osteen reached into his binder, his fingers brushing against the edge of a printout that highlighted a stark contrast. He held it up, a full-color print of a lavish gala event attended by the politician George Santos, the date stamp unmistakably from a time when he had publicly claimed financial hardship or when alleged campaign funds were reportedly tight. The room stirred. Reporters leaned forward. Even the judge seemed to take a moment. This isn't just a social photo, Joel Osteen said, his gaze sweeping the room. This is what a disregard for public trust looks like. This is what a pattern of questionable conduct looks like. And this is what many have tried to overlook. The politician's attorney stammered, "Objection!" The judge muttered, "Overruled," clearly seeking to understand. Joel Osteen turned the printout toward the assembled members, then pointed to an accompanying document. On this expense report, Mr. Santos listed campaign outreach for the same period. Yet this receipt shows a significant personal purchase made on the same date, allegedly using campaign-related funds. He didn't need to explain further. The documented discrepancies did all the talking. Then came the second blow. Joel Osteen held up a bank statement printout. Further, these records indicate a series of financial transfers, allegedly involving funds earmarked for campaign purposes, that found their way into personal accounts or were used for non-campaign-related expenses during this same period. The timeline is stark. The paper trail is alarming. And Mr. Osteen's voice didn't shake once. This isn't a political attack. It's not idle gossip. It's documented financial information. And you can dismiss it, deflect from it, or try to obscure the facts. But the American people are watching, and they expect honesty. One attendee quietly took notes. The gallery was dead silent. And Joel Osteen, he tucked the printouts back into the folder like they were simply components of a larger truth, because they were, and he was far from finished. The tension in the room was electric. Joel Osteen had just illuminated how the politician George Santos's extensive fabrications were not mere misstatements, but a pattern of deception that seemed to go unchecked by a system meant to ensure public integrity. But now he took a slow step forward, addressing the broader panel with a calm, deliberate sincerity. "You want to lecture America about fairness?" he asked, his voice resonating through the hushed crowd. "Then explain to them why a public official, a man who built his career on a foundation of documented falsehoods, continues to evade comprehensive accountability for alleged financial irregularities and a complete disregard for truth." Gasps. Someone in the back muttered, "He said it," and others nodded silently. The panel members exchanged glances, but allowed him to continue. Joel Osteen continued, his voice now calm, deadly calm. "We have whistleblowers, internal communications, and sworn testimonies that detail how a systematic pattern of deception was allowed to proliferate, how alleged fraudulent activities were met with prolonged delays in investigation, and how the politician's repeated fabrications about his background were initially dismissed by some as merely colorful or exaggerated. The screen behind him lit up. Documented discrepancies, fabricated resumes, and bank statements with highlighted transactions appeared. The room buzzed. "This isn't just political gamesmanship," Joel Osteen stated with profound conviction. "This is a failure to uphold the fundamental principles of honesty and integrity in public service, and it erodes the very faith citizens place in their elected officials." A reporter in the gallery stopped typing. One of the committee members shifted uncomfortably, clearly agitated. Joel Osteen didn't stop. "We see ordinary citizens face immediate legal repercussions for far lesser deceptions in their professional or personal lives. But when a public official systematically misleads the electorate, allegedly misappropriates funds, and fabricates core aspects of his identity, suddenly the path to accountability is convoluted. Suddenly, the severity is downplayed. Suddenly, a different standard seems to apply." He turned to the cameras. "Now, to every American watching, ask yourself, if you had built your career on such blatant falsehoods, would you still be granted the same platforms? Would you still be allowed to operate with such apparent impunity? Or would the full weight of justice fall swiftly upon you?" He didn't need applause. The palpable shift in the room's atmosphere said enough. The moment Joel Osteen turned back to the crowd, his eyes met with the dozen red recording lights blinking across cameras lining the room. Every network seemed to be carrying it live. Fox, CNN, even MSNBC. It was no longer just a political debate. It was a televised moral imperative. Joel Osteen didn't flinch. He leaned into the microphone and delivered a statement that made the entire chamber go still. "You know what's truly astonishing?" he asked, lifting his gaze to the judge, then slowly turning back toward the politician. "It's not merely the fabricated education, the questionable financial dealings, or the multiple instances of misrepresentation. It's that you were exposed and still appear to believe that such widespread deception is acceptable." Murmurs rippled through the room. The judge's gavel slammed once in warning, but the quiet conviction in Joel Osteen's voice commanded attention. The politician George Santos opened his mouth to object, but Joel Osteen didn't give him the chance. He stepped forward, holding up a small printed sheet. "These are the names of individuals who donated to your campaign, believing in your stated background, your promises, and your reported experiences. They gave their hard-earned money based on what they were told, not what was true. That's what a profound breach of public trust looks like, and every American watching knows it." The sheet remained steady in his hand, and his voice was unshaken. "You built a platform on stories that were not your own, while ordinary citizens face severe penalties for any form of fraud. You gained influence through fabricated credentials, while those who work with integrity are often overlooked. Don't talk to me about integrity. Don't even whisper the word." At this point, even the courtroom guards seemed to listen intently. The legal teams exchanged quiet glances. The defense attorney slowly settled back in his chair. And the politician? He looked away, not to his lawyer, not to his staff, but to the floor, as if hoping the weight of the moment would simply dissipate. Joel Osteen wasn't done. "And now," he said, his voice steady as a clear pronouncement, "you expect this country to believe that accountability is being served simply because you've made public appearances. No, appearing isn't accountability. Owning the truth, facing the repercussions, that's accountability. And you, Mr. Santos, have yet to demonstrate a sincere commitment to that." He placed the list down on the table. "The people you misled, the trust you betrayed, they are watching, and they are seeking truth." The judge, clearly affected, motioned for order, but the quiet gravity held the room. No one moved, no one breathed. It was the moment everyone would remember, not the political spin, not the legal maneuvers, but this. Joel Osteen standing calmly, upholding the standard of truth before a public figure who had systematically violated it, reminding everyone what it meant to answer to integrity. As he turned to leave the podium, a slow ripple of acknowledgement began, not from a partisan group, but from some of the journalists in the gallery. It spread. Camera operators, analysts, even courtroom staff. The recognition grew louder, not in boisterousness, but in deep conviction. It wasn't about political victory anymore. It was about the affirmation of truth. Joel Osteen walked back to his seat, head high. The politician still hadn't looked up. This wasn't just a courtroom. It was a crucible of integrity, and the nation had just seen its reflection clearly. The mood inside the chamber had already shifted by the time Joel Osteen stood back up, but this time he wasn't holding just a stack of papers. He had the politician George Santos's internal campaign communications and documented financial records in hand, not the sanitized versions that had already been half acknowledged by the media, but the full details with all discrepancies highlighted, dates confirmed, and sources verified. The origin, former campaign staffers and financial analysts, now stepping forward, and Joel Osteen had just received a clearance to present them. In a documented internal memo dated March 15th, Joel Osteen said, his voice steady as a rock, Mr. Santos's team discussed how to manage public perceptions regarding alleged discrepancies. And I quote, "They'll never track it all. The media moves on, keep projecting confidence." Gasps were audible. Not one, but several members of the press clutched their earpieces, trying to confirm what they had just heard. A member of the legal team rose to object, but the judge raised a hand, unusually curious. "Mr. Osteen," he said slowly, "can you verify the authenticity?" Joel Osteen nodded. "Your Honor, these documents and testimonies from former campaign personnel and financial experts are already part of ongoing inquiries. I'm not seeking to violate due process. I'm illuminating a pattern of documented deception." He stepped forward, laying the documents onto the evidence desk. "And here's the kicker," he said. "While constituents believed in the narratives presented, George Santos was allegedly diverting funds, fabricating key aspects of his life, and sidestepping the fundamental requirements of transparency and truth." The room erupted. Cameras started flashing again, this time from the legacy media outlets that had been cautiously observing. CNN, MSNBC, even NPR. Something profound had changed. The pattern of deception was undeniable. Joel Osteen didn't flinch. He turned to the politician, whose confident demeanor was now visibly shaken, his face pale. "You crafted a public persona on a foundation of falsehoods. You sought the trust of the electorate through a manufactured reality. And now you expect to simply continue, despite the overwhelming evidence of misrepresentation?" The politician didn't answer. He didn't need to, because the silence from his legal team spoke louder than any defense could. Joel Osteen stepped back and whispered just loud enough for every mic to catch. "This isn't just about political disagreement. This is about integrity. And America just saw it for what it is, a raw, unchecked disregard for truth in public service." And that's when even some of the most steadfast observers looked away, confronted by the gravity of the moment. The lights in the chamber dimmed slightly as the final round of statements began. Journalists, cameras, and analysts were packed shoulder to shoulder, all anticipating the concluding remarks. But none expected the clarity with which Joel Osteen would speak. His tone dropped, not into anger, but into something profoundly resonant, a pastor's solemn address. "Mr. Santos," Joel Osteen said, his voice echoing across the silent room, "you've often portrayed yourself as a victim of political attacks. You've blamed the media, your opponents, the circumstances, but perhaps you've not fully examined the reflection of your own choices." The politician leaned back, folding his arms, trying to appear unconcerned, but the rigid set of his jaw betrayed him. Joel Osteen paused, then spoke. "This isn't about personal flaws or past mistakes in the typical sense. It's about the systemic impact of sustained deception. This is a record of 8 individuals, constituents, who reached out to your office for genuine assistance, only to be met with stalled responses or empty promises, while documented records indicate a substantial portion of campaign funds were allegedly routed to personal expenses or undisclosed uses." Gasps rippled through the room. Citizens seeking legitimate help received bureaucratic delays, while the politician allegedly utilized campaign contributions for personal enrichment and maintaining a facade of success. The politician finally broke. "You don't understand the pressures I've faced. You have no idea the complexities of public life," he said, his voice rising. Joel Osteen's eyes didn't waver. "You're right, Mr. Santos. I may not. But I know what a hardworking small business owner feels when they realize their trust in a public servant was misplaced. When the person they voted for was built on a foundation of mistruths." He stood, not for the cameras, not for the headlines, but because the message of truth had been delivered. And that's when it happened. A constituent in the crowd, a man who had publicly voiced his disappointment, rose slowly and gave a quiet nod of affirmation. No words, just one clear, solemn gesture of recognition. Others followed, some in business attire, some in simple clothes, one with a hand over his heart. And the politician, he stayed seated, eyes down, silent. That image, Joel Osteen, standing calmly, a beacon of integrity against a tide of deception, resonated across every screen in the country. It wasn't just a debate. It wasn't just a legal proceeding. It was the moment. America recognized what truth and integrity in public service should look like. And Joel Osteen didn't just make an argument. He affirmed the profound importance of honesty to those who had felt their trust betrayed. They call it politics, but it looks like a crisis of integrity, a pattern of deception, and a failure of accountability. Joel Osteen didn't just confront the politician George Santos. He reminded the entire country what honest leadership is supposed to look like. And the millions who watched, they saw through the facade. The question now isn't who will be exposed next. It's who still believes they can build a career on a foundation of lies.